For this one, we cover a man who the internet seems to take as a joke, somebody who talks that talk but doesn't walk the walk. But as you'll see in this video, this man has a rap sheet longer than Jason Love, and on top of this, he's willing to do the unthinkable, crossing his own flag for the money. And most importantly, you'll get to see who he really is behind the scenes and why he's about to spend the rest of his life in prison. So if you ever took Bricc Baby as a joke, this video will certainly change your mind. But before we get into it, let me run the intro. The story begins on Bedford Avenue, located in the notorious Overhill section of the Rolling 60s. Here is where a boy named Zaire Mitchell was born to a notorious Los Angeles family. Not notorious on an official or legal level, but notorious in the sense that they were known as a serious hustling family. So given their potentially dangerous lifestyle, they smartly decided to let Zaire stay with his grandma whenever they were handling business. Basically, throughout his younger years, he was between his mom's house on Bedford and his grandma's house on Donview Place. I say that to say that his family always wanted to put him in good positions, and that included sending him to private school as well. So growing up, Zaire attended Price Christian Academy and was known as a straight-A student and standout basketball player. Now I do want to point out that this isn't modern day or something, as the school is definitely located in the hood, but the point is that his parents put him in a good position. And early on it was really paying off, as Zaire had a bright future ahead. But then, his parents would meet some people that would change his family's trajectory forever. While Zaire was in middle school, his parents would meet and build a relationship with Big Meech and Southwest T, the founders of the notorious BMF. Ooh-wee, this took their hustle to a whole new level. Basically, they started with helping BMF expand to the West Coast, but then they were actually invited to live with them in Detroit. This was a financial opportunity of a lifetime, and Zaire's parents would take up on it and flee to Detroit. Obviously, they would leave the kids back home to be raised by Granny, and this is when life would start to derail for Zaire. Once his parents left, he began to veer towards hanging out with his cousins in the hood, who happened to be notorious Rolling 60s members. And unfortunately, as soon as he was introduced to the lifestyle, he knew that he wanted to be a part of the streets. But because he was only 11 to 12 years old, his cousins refused to put him onto the hood, and as a result, Zaire tried to create his own gangs.
And we started some called Inglewood, California Crip. Me and my best friend, Envelope.
Then, after giving up that idea, he decides to join something else.
From there, I joined a clique called CIP, and it was completely irresistible players. And the police end up documenting us in the gang files as Crips in Progress, CIP. So they changed it from completely irresistible players to Crips in Progress because we was getting into so much shit in the area. So that was really my introduction.
So now as a middle schooler, Zaire is roaming the West LA streets as an unofficial gang member. But then his friend's uncle would find out about this, and things would not be good for them. Well, not in the way you'd think. Instead of being upset that they're in the streets like any responsible adult should, he was just upset that they didn't join his gang.
Uncle Mike, he found out we all was from this clique, and he came over there tripping one day. Like he was bullying, like this is a big buff grown man. He came over there tripping on this one day, like I ain't having it. Like y'all either go turn West Boulevard today or this shit over.
So now Zaire is pressured with the ultimatum of joining the West Boulevard Crips. This was like a dream come true, except because he was told to do it, he now did not want to do it. Like if I'm gonna join somewhere, I'm gonna do it because I want to, not because somebody else is telling me to do it.
I ain't finna be from West Boulevard, because he tried to make me. You know, I was rebellious back then, so I started hanging with the Harlem 30s.
So now after rejecting the West Boulevards, he starts hanging out with the notorious Harlem 30s. He runs with them for a short time, but then his cousins come around and are like, you're either gonna join over there or join us with the 60s.
Like my mom always had a house nearby Slauson, and all my cousins lived on Slauson, so I end up getting put on 60s like my 14th summer, but I always was affiliated.
So Zaire officially gets put onto the 60s during his 8th grade summer.
I got jumped by all old man. I started with one, he was like 19, and I started with like a 30-year-old and a...
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, I got knocked out.
So now he's officially a Rolling 60s member right before starting out at his private high school. He's known as Zaire Mitchell at school, and on the block he's known as Wild Bill from the Overhills. But somehow amidst his gangbanging, he's able to maintain an above 3.0 average at school and to become the backup point guard. Now you might hear backup point guard and think that he was trash, but nah. You gotta know where he went to school. They were stacked. We'll get into all of that in a second, but the point is that while he's doing all this positive stuff, he's also living the life as a full-time gangbanger. When he wasn't at his Christian academy, he was knee-deep in very dangerous situations in the set. Specifically, his main expertise was robbing and extorting rappers who come to LA, and that takes us to 2004. June 29th, 2004. It's the weekend of the annual BET Awards in LA, and the Rolling 60s have nothing but extortion on their minds. In particular, on this day, Zaire and his boys have somebody they want to target. Yep, that's right, Jeezy the Snowman, and they desperately want that chain. Why him? Well, simply because he has the shiniest chain they've ever seen.
We've never seen nothing like this. You gotta think, LA, like the real Gotti diamond jury, diamond in each link, like, this has never been done in LA yet. The rapper's jury is very feasible. Like, if you get you some rapper jury and go to the jeweler, you up a couple $100,000.
Unfortunately for them, they're unable to get a hand on Jeezy at the award show, so now they follow him to the club.
It was so many of us, we pushed the security out the way and rushed the club.
So now Zaire and his boys run in the club and absolutely take it over. In fact, Zaire jumps behind the bar, grabs 2 bottles, and then stands up and clashes them together. Simultaneously, his boys go over to the DJ booth and grab the mic.
Tell the whole club to roll the 60s in here, like, oh, like it's one of them nights.
After doing this, they wiggle over to the section that Jeezy's in, looking to snatch his chain.
We trying to ease our way to Jeezy. We see the snowman. We trying to go do our thing.
But as Jeezy's crew notice what's about to happen, they whip out their Briccs.
They got like a chopper. This is my first time ever seeing like a mini carbon or something. Like they got a chopper out, like, and we look back and I just go to shake Jeezy and ooh we yeah, like what up, man?
Thankfully, the situation was stopped before it even started. But I say all that to show that at just 16 years old, this is what Zaire was about. And because of his willingness to do anything for the 60s, he was increasing his rank. This is how he earned the name in the set of Shitty or Shitro and the ability to put on new members. Well, in the late summer of 2004, he would bring his first young member to be put on the set. This would be a young friend of his by the name of Eric Holder. Eric was only 14 years old, but already thirsty and ready to put in work in the set. So of course, Zaire brings him to the set, puts him on, and he earns the nickname of Lil Shitty. Big Shitty and Lil Shitty, a duo that would forever make history in the set. So being a big homie at just 16 years old meant that Zaire had a rider by his side. At first, this meant protecting the trap, which happened to be Zaire's mom's house. This is where you could find a whole lot of money, jewelry, and illicit items inside. So because of Zaire, his mom's house became the hangout spot for the Overhill 60s.
My house was the spot. She had money and shit in the house and a lot of jewelry. So she let all the gangbangers kick it at the house because she had control of us. I had control of my homies, but we was like the security blanket.
Now remember, as he's committing felony robberies and hanging out on the block, he's still enrolled in private school and playing on the basketball team. So now it's the fall of 2004 and Zaire's team has a major season ahead. The team is absolutely stacked as they have a 6'10 D1 center, a 6'7 D1 wing, and the point guard is Devin Williams, who you may know is in the lab. Well, long story short, they're so good that they have an undefeated season in their league and they make it to the state championship game in Sacramento. Of course, they win the state championship, beating a Bay Area team like LA always does. So on paper, everything in Zaire's life is looking good. A good GPA, winning a state championship, and also getting noticed on the AAU circuit. In fact, he was playing so well that he skipped his senior year of high school to go play at a basketball prep school in Mississippi. Now you'd think that with this great opportunity, Zaire would go into it with a positive mentality. Now that I'm out of state, I'm gonna leave the gang stuff behind me and simply focus on basketball. But sadly, for whatever reason, he simply cannot let the street life go. So right after his senior year at the prep school, he catches his first case. As he's riding around Mississippi in a car with no registration, the troopers get behind him. And because he has an illegal weapon in the car, he decides to take him on a chase. So he bends a few blocks, giving him enough time to roll down the window and throw out the clip and then throw out the weapon. So then after getting rid of it, he rolls his window up and then pulls over so they can talk to him. Unfortunately for him, the officers did see him throw it, so they go around and they end up finding it. At this point, everything he's worked hard for is at jeopardy. He could quickly become a felon. However, because of a technicality in Mississippi law, he gets off with a misdemeanor.
Threw the gun, so they found the gun with no clip. That's a misdemeanor. Because it wasn't like...
Well, while this is going on and he's sitting in a jail cell, he does receive some very good news.
And while I'm there, I get an acceptance letter from Clark Atlanta University.
So now he has the amazing opportunity to play on Clark Atlanta's basketball team and to go to school for free. Well, after presenting this to the court, the judge thankfully allows him to get out of jail just 2 days before orientation.
What day do you start orientation? He let me out 2 days before orientation, so I couldn't do no gang banging or nothing.
This was a close call, but thankfully they let him off easy and he's able to now focus on, well, is he? Oh, hell nah. You'd think that catching that case would scare him straight, like everything I've worked hard for almost was out of my hands. Like now I'm gonna focus on basketball and school and definitely stay out of trouble. But nope, Zaire's entrance to Atlanta would be quite the opposite. As soon as he touches down in the city, he links up with his Rolling 60s cousins who now run with BMF. So while his classmates are sleeping in the dorms and kicking it on campus, he's with Big Meech at the club and sleeping in his mansion as well.
So I'm the youngest little dude, you know what I'm saying, young in the club, 17, 18, I'm with Meech and them though.
And as soon as he was introduced to their lifestyle, he fell in love with it and was willing to do anything to impress Big Meech, including trapping and moving weight while being a full-time college student. So just like that, an 18-year-old Zaire is risking his freedom once again, and unfortunately during his second semester, it would all catch up to him. While heading down the interstate with 75 pounds in his car, a Georgia State trooper gets behind him. He throws some of the bags out of the window, but unfortunately they catch up to him before he can get rid of it all. And just like that, Zaire is arrested and is facing a serious Class A felony. While enrolled as a college student, he's now facing up to 8 years in prison. At this moment, everything he's ever worked for is now way out of the window. They caught him red-handed with serious weight, and he's going to be sitting in prison for quite some time. Well, long story short, he pleads guilty to the felony, and now his future is at the hands of a judge. Somehow he gets another lenient judge who sentences him to
4 months in jail, 10 years probation.
Receiving only 4 months for 75 pounds is very strange, especially in the South. On top of this, during this exact time, BMF was taken down and all of them got 15 to 20 years.
With 4 new big arrests, Atlanta police believe they have just about shut down the so-called Black Mafia family. And as our Julia Harding reports, these suspects were hiding out in one of the city's most popular areas.
Anyone tied to BMF typically has an extensive criminal history, so we consider them to be very violent.
Federal agents seized this limo with secret compartments that had almost $1 million hidden inside. An organization that at one time claimed to rule Atlanta. Now agents say that's no longer the case.
So now with all of BMF arrested, Zaire just threw his life away for nothing. You started trapping to impress them, and now you'll probably never see them again. So now that he doesn't have a school to go to or a crew to hang out with, he only has a choice but to return back to Los Angeles. So right after his release from Fulton County Jail, he makes his glorious return to the wicked, overhill Los Angeles streets. It's now the fall of 2006 and Zaire is back to ground one, hanging out with his 60s homies in the hood. He's now just another failed high school athlete who's back in the hood doing absolutely nothing. We all know some of those, don't we? But not only is he doing nothing productive, he's also in the process of risking his life every single day. Why, you might be wondering? Well, because while he was in Atlanta, his little homie Eric Holder was causing havoc in the streets. So upon Zaire's return to LA, he was putting his life in immediate risk. It's an early October afternoon, and Zaire and Eric are rolling through the set headed to their local corner store. Zaire has his shirt off and a Bricc sitting in his lap as they get to the store. So when Eric parks the car, Zaire hops out and puts his Bricc under his seat. He then reaches for the back door so he can grab his hoodie and put it on. But that's when he's met with a barrage of gunfire. Shots are flying from all the way across the street, but somehow Zaire is hitting his shoulder. It then ricochets and hits him in his neck, which completely shatters his back. So now he's laying on the floor and can't move anything under his waist. Thankfully, that's when Eric runs around to him, picks him up, and ties him down in the front seat. He then runs around to his side of the car, hops in, and speeds away to the hospital.
They ended up taking me. My boy was panicking, driving 100 miles per hour. I'm like, man, slow down, because I didn't have no feeling, so my neck I'm like, bro.
Thankfully, he ends up surviving after making it to the hospital, but that's when the doctors give him devastating news.
Like, I was in the bed, like when I first got shot, and he was rubbing the bottom of my feet. So what happened, my nerves were shattered. I had fractured my neck. I'm telling them, like, I could feel you rubbing my foot. He like, no, you can't. You're paralyzed. You'll be, he's like a Middle Eastern dude. You'll be paralyzed forever. You'll never walk again. I'm like, bro, I just felt you rub my feet. He's like, you want to feel me rubbing your feet? I'm like, what the f***?
So for 6 months, he lays in a hospital bed thinking that he'll be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. A whole lot of time to lay there and think about all of his wasted potential. So now he's pissed off at his rivals and he tells Eric to go put in work. So from what we know, Eric Holder immediately hit the streets and started knocking down rivals. So not only did he save his life, but he also allegedly eliminated those who did this to his friend. Eric's loyalty to Zaire was unparalleled. He was basically forever indebted to his life. Well, after months of being angry in a hospital bed, a miracle comes out of nowhere.
We sitting inside the hospital, we watching TV, and I just move my legs up like, and she like, what the f*** are you doing? I'm like, I was like, oh shit, I was trying to get comfortable. And my legs just moved. She like, what the fuck? Like, oh, she ran and got the nurse. Went to rehab, physical therapy after that for like 4 months.
Somehow, after 6 months, he's able to fully recover and get back on his feet. And after his full recovery, he would smartly get out of the LA streets and head back to Atlanta. Now, you may be thinking that this was his wake-up call to get out of the streets, but this wasn't the case at all. Instead, he heads back to Atlanta with a serious mission in mind, and he brings Eric with him. Basically, he wants to become the king of the streets, the powerful leader of the Georgia Rolling 60s. At this time, and really still to this day, the streets in the South had absolutely zero structure. Nobody listened or followed orders from anyone, and it was pretty much every man for himself. No certified OGs, DPs, put-ons, none of that. So essentially what Zaire was trying to do was bring the Los Angeles way to Georgia, where he could have people under him and serving anything he wanted. So in order to do this, he hit the streets hard and recruited new members, guys who were under him and who would do anything he said. And in the process, believe it or not, they took over some serious hoods, and this is how Zaire truly made his name in Atlanta. From the notorious Four Seasons apartments, the West End, and a Southside hood known as Shady Park. While in the process of expanding the set, Zaire unfortunately brought some havoc to the streets. In typical LA fashion, he began robbing and extorting rappers, a trend that Atlanta had never seen before.
No, that's somebody I robbed that was Gucci's best friend.
This is how he becomes known for robbing in Atlanta, somebody that you'd rather have on your side than against you. So he's basically extorting people for friendships, but on the flip side, he's also pretty intelligent. After befriending a local Rolling 60 by the name of Pee Wee Longway, he ends up running his bag up like never before. If you're unfamiliar, Pee Wee was a very well-known hustler in the streets of Atlanta, known for running up millions. And because of this, he had connections to the up-and-coming and major rappers in Atlanta.
I met everybody through Pee Wee Longway. That's my brother. That's like my brother-in-law.
As they were constantly in studios and surrounded by rappers, they decided to join together and to start a music label. This would be known as Money, Piles, and Ammo, also known as MPA.
Okay, so you guys started rolling together and you guys start MPA together.
We around it so much, let's pay for some studio time, shoot a couple videos, let's just see where this goes.
Unfortunately, they had no idea how to properly run a business, but aside from that, Zaire had a special ear for talent. In fact, he discovered Young Thug in 2008 and actually started managing his career early on. Without having him signed to any sort of paperwork, Zaire had him in the studio and was also introducing him to some bigger names.